two state senators as they talk about the budget, Senator Locke and Senator Mason. So this past month, I spent time with our high school seniors celebrating their graduations. It was such an honor to see these high school seniors transition into their young adulthood. Here in Newport News, we are so lucky to have incredible students who are smart and curious, and incredible teachers who help them thrive. As we look at Newport News, strong public schools are a building block to strong, thriving communities. Losing out on these resources would set us back at a time when Virginia already has a low rating from the Education Law Center when it comes to school funding efforts. The additional $1 billion for our public schools in Virginia would put us in the right direction and help our students succeed. And here at Newport News, at least at the local level, we always try and 100% have funded our public schools. So we want to do that at the state level right now. As we shared earlier, there are two vastly different budgets being debated. I'm really here to talk about the one that my Democratic friends in the Virginia Senate are proposing, which makes a $1 billion investment in our public schools. This budget would mean for Newport News over $20 million more for our public schools, or $822 per student. One more time, $822 per student additional funding. This increased Senate funding would add 373 staffers to Newport News City Schools, which includes school support staff like counselors, social workers, and nurses. I strongly support the Senate budget because funding our schools should be our greatest priority, and that should be better than tax giveaways to corporations. In the final weeks of budget negotiations, I am calling on representatives from both chambers to listen to what Virginians really want and invest in our schools. That is what we need to do here at Newport News. Thank you so much. Next up, I'm going to have Mr. Sam come up and talk. Sam Urey.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for being here today. My name is Sam Urey. I am a retired educator and current substitute teacher for Newport News Public Schools. I have been, and still am, a tireless advocate for our students and public education. I've been doing this for over 30 years. I also volunteer as the Colonial UNICEF Chair, working with 6 local education associations, which includes Newport News. The consistent underfunding of our schools has been a problem for years. If you want the best, you must pay for it. The question today is, what could Virginia's public schools do with an additional $1 billion? I say again, $1 billion with a B dollars. We must build strong schools that will enhance and ensure strong communities in the future. We all know that public education and education in general is a great equalizer in the United States. Virginia must continue to be the leader, not only in the South, but also in the country, in producing the most highly educated, most productive, and civically engaged citizens we can. To do that, to solidify our high educational ranking in this nation, the policymakers in Richmond must make decisions to ensure that. Our state has the 10th highest median household income in the country, but is 40th in per student funding for K-12 education. We all understand grades and grading. Virginia has a D for adequacy and equity and combined state and local funding, and an F in funding effort according to the Education Law Center. Our children, our community, and our state deserve better. We have the opportunity to steer more funds to public education. They need to prioritize education over tax breaks. Thankfully, we have a clear choice in the Senate version of the state budget this year. The senators present are advocates for this monumental investment in education. The current administration has already cost schools $201 million due to a calculation error. In spite of this error, they do not have the funds to fix that. Instead of fixing that, they're fixated on a tax scheme that will cut additional state funding. Let's speak truth to power. The additional money will give Newport News more money. It will increase Newport News per pupil spending. It will mean we will be able to meet more needs for specialized support staff, reading specialists, and additional English language learner positions. If we wish to recruit and retain highly qualified, motivated teachers, we must fund our schools. If we want more social workers, psychologists, school and school counselors, nurses and school counselors, we must fund our schools. If we want more security, better facilities, and current technology, we must fund our schools. Thank you. I'll be followed by Mariah.
Good morning, everyone. Mr. Governor and his House Republicans are only vying to give merely $350 million to education, while giving the rest to big corporates who didn't even ask for a tax break. Meanwhile, teachers have been asking, begging, and pleading to invest in education. Now, Senate Democrats are vying that we invest $1 billion in education. It's quite simple. You do the math. Mr. Long.
Good afternoon. My name is Cleon Long, and I'm proud to serve for Newport News City Council. At the heart of strong, thriving communities is strong, thriving public schools. And right now, our policymakers in the General Assembly have a choice in front of them. Either pass a budget that makes historic investments in public education, or pass a budget that is a tax giveaway to corporate and the wealthy. I'm calling on policymakers to make the right choice. Fund our schools to create a brighter future for students and families. Our children, our families, and our educators deserve better than underfunded schools that do not give students the tools to thrive. The Virginia Senate proposed a historic budget this year that invests an additional $1 billion for public education, funding critical investments like teacher pay raises and state support for important new positions like reading specialists and mental health staff. The Senate budget would mean $20,661,038 more for Newport News Public Schools. That's additional $822 more per student. The increased Senate funding would add 373 staffers to Newport News City schools, including school support staff like counselors, social workers, and nurses. Our kids need these resources. Lawmakers have the opportunity to address this funding error and make a historic investment in public education. Now I'll call on Senator Monty Mason.
Thank you. Thank you, Councilman Long. Thank you all for being here today. You know, there's some senior members of our body that always say that you can tell the priorities of state government by looking at the budget and what they fund. Today, we are here to highlight the importance of that on the Senate side. Yes, you've heard the reduction in an income tax to our highest income earners, a reduction in corporate taxes on one side in the House as a proxy for the governor's budget. But the Senate focuses on support staff positions. The Senate calls out mental health and physical health. The Senate funds a 2% increase with a $1,000 bonus K through 12 that does not require a local match. And then finally, the Senate also puts $170 million into financial aid and affordability for higher education, trying to help more people take the next step in education. You know, a week or so ago, I was at Carver Elementary School at Career Day, and we were talking about what is a support staff position, because Newport News and other schools already have these positions. Of course, the state just hasn't been living up to our responsibility to fund them. So the students really didn't know they're in elementary school, so the teachers started saying, Mr. Lopez, oh, Mr. Lopez, Ms. Jones. Each class called out at least 5 support staff positions that the students were euphoric to talk about how important they were to their education and their career. That's the real meaning of it on the ground. That's what we believe in when we're making these strides. This is great for Newport News. In my new district, this adds upwards of right at 550 new positions. Almost 50% of them will be support staff positions to help the teachers teach, to accentuate the learning and the education that's taking place in our schools. That's what we need to focus on. That's why we're here today, and that's why we're insistent upon passing the Senate budget with the focus on education not with tax cuts at this point in time. So thank you all for being here. Thanks to the VEA and the teachers that are here today. And now I turn it over to my friend and colleague, a member of the Finance Committee who's been fighting hard for the Senate budget, and the chair of the Senate Rules Committee, Mamie Locke.
Thanks, Monty. And thanks everybody for being here. I appreciate you turning out today and pivoting to be here. I stand here as a member of the Senate Education and Health Committee and a member of the Senate Finance and Appropriations Committee. I also stand here as a Senate conferee for the budget. And we've heard quite a bit that the reason why there hasn't been an approval of amendments to the budget this year is because of the Senate. It's because of the Senate Democrats. We're blocking the budget. Yeah, we are. Yeah, we are. And the reason why we're doing that is because you've heard we're not going to approve $1 billion in budget cuts. We are not going to do that because there are too many other priorities that take precedence over $1 billion in budget cuts. And you've heard what those are. As a member of those committees, I know more than most the needs that exist in our public schools and how the budget can be a powerful tool to meet many of those needs. I can promise you, I know more than our out-of-touch millionaire governor who is prioritizing his corporate friends than he's prioritizing our kids. That's why I led the fight with my Democratic colleagues in the Senate to reject his tax scheme for the rich and instead show the governor and the rest of Virginia that we are prioritizing the future leaders of our state through stronger public schools. That's where our priority is, not his friends and not the corporate rich. You've already heard some of the statistics for localities, but I want to show you that I represent Hampton City, Newport News City, Portsmouth City, and York County. In Hampton City alone, $11.1 million will go in additional state funding, 126 new staff positions, including 112 support staff, 19 physical and mental behavioral support staff. In Portsmouth City, $10.3 million in additional state funding and 109 new staff positions, including 67 support staff, 12 physical and mental behavioral health staff. In York County, $5.9 million in additional state funding, 86 new staff positions, including 69 support staff and 13 physical and mental behavioral health staff. Let me make perfectly clear for everyone here, and I hope that the governor and his team take this to heart, they won't. Don't worry about it, they won't. Because they don't even understand public education for the most part. Because he appointed someone to a board that homeschools their kids. You know, he appointed people to boards who sit on boards dealing with private education and homeschool education. So very clearly he doesn't understand public education at all. Funding public schools should always be more important than tax giveaways to the rich. Let me repeat. Funding public schools should always be more important than tax giveaways to the rich. But the governor doesn't get it. His plan drains money from our current budget, and those costs balloon drastically in future budget years. Our friends at the Commonwealth Institute find that the top tax rate reduction not only provides an average benefit of $0, that's right, $0, for the bottom 20% of earners, while helping Youngkin's buddies at the top 1% with an average benefit of nearly $4,000. Not only that, but that proposal alone will cost Virginia $1.5 billion in the next biennial budget, leaving even less resources on the table to help our public schools. What's worse, this proposal does nothing to fix an upside-down tax code that puts many working-class people, like teachers, in the same tax brackets as millionaires. You don't have to be a math expert to know the top 1%, the wealthiest of the wealthiest in our state, don't need additional financial help right now. Not at a time when teacher pay needs to be increased. Not at a time when kids need the proper support staff to help them thrive in school. Let's do the right thing and pass the Senate